Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Finding Joy in Your Vestibular Migraine Journey. I'm Marissa, and this is my co-host, Joy.
Hello.
And I have someone special with me here today. This is my husband, Jonah.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome, Jonah.
He's here today because we wanted to take a little different perspective. We wanted to see how the caretaker's view or a family member's view is when you're living with someone with vestibular migraine. And I have had this on and off for over a decade now, vestibular migraine, chronic migraine, and PPPD. And so Jonah's seen it from the beginning up until now, so there's been a lot. So we just thought he would come on and kind of talk about that a little bit, how it was.
Yeah. Well, and Jonah, I thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate you taking the time to open up about this. So what were your thoughts when you first heard the diagnosis of vestibular migraine? Had you even heard of that before? I mean, what went through your head?
I've never heard of it, and I'll backtrack a little bit. Marissa was dealing with a lot of headaches and dizziness, and it was very scary, because it continued on, and she kept telling me something's off and not right, and I feel uneasy, and I have headaches, and I feel dizzy, and we were really scared because we didn't know what it was at all. The first thing you think about is, is it a tumor? Is it something there? And she had to we went to the emergency room and they had to do CAT scan. And I was scared and we were scared. And I was like, okay, let's see what this is. We're going to make it through. And the scans came clear. And I was so happy. We were happy. I was happy with Marissa and we were like, oh, thank God. Everything is clear. We're good. And I'm Mr. Positive. And I'm like, this is great news for us. So the time went on and it still continued. So, we got away from that, but the symptoms were still there. And that was turning to be a problem because she kept telling me, I'm still not feeling good. And I kept saying, the scans are clear. They said everything is clear with this. And we went on. And then we went to see a doctor in the city.
Dr. Hain.
Dr. Hain.
Chicago Dizziness and Balance, yeah.
Dr. Hain, we went and visited, and he did all sorts of tests.
Ears.
Yep, ear and sound checks and checking everything there. And we got the results back. And the results, what did the results exactly state again, Marissa?
That it was vestibular migraine,
Okay.
and it was not coming from the ear. It was, from my brain.
So that came about. So then that was the first time I've heard of something like that. It's like, okay, vestibular migraine. And it seemed like, okay, there's exercises you do and there's different things you do. And he recommended some medications that you do. And I think, what was the first medication that we tried?
The first 4 years of this, I really didn't try any medication. He had given options, and I just opted. I didn't want to try those, so I did the vestibular rehab therapy.
Yep.
And that helped a little bit. I also went to a behavioral vision doctor, Dr. Seifert, and she taught me a lot of eye exercises since mine was so visually affected by everything. So during that 4-year period, I kind of went back to doing pretty much everything normal except driving. I would do everything except I wasn't able to drive because I had trouble focusing on the road. My eyes just didn't want to do it. I would get super dizzy. But everything was pretty good.
I'd say
that time.
Right. And again, at that time, things were still okay, but it was still there. Something was there that wasn't getting fully fixed. Then you had some time where you had time off where it seemed like it was healing.
Yes, yes. Then I had a 4-year remission
Yep.
when I started working again and just doing everything normal and wasn't even having a headache. And then, yeah, that took us to our second round in this that started in 2018 again.
Yeah. And I know how that feels. In my similar story, or mine is similar to Marissa's, where I had a pause, felt better, and it came back with a vengeance. And
Yeah. So much worse.
And Jonah, when it came back, kind of what went through your head when it came back? How did that make you feel? Kind of how did it affect everything? How did it affect your family?
Well, when it came back, it slowly came back. And then I'm always checking in with her. Hey, how's it going? How's it going? And it's still there every day, every week. And it's like, in my mind, it's kind of back. And I'm like, oh my God. The second time was fearful because we dealt with it already the first time. Okay. But I feel like the second time it was worse.
So much worse.
It was worse. It was moments of in my head, couldn't be on the phone. She couldn't see the phone. She couldn't watch TV.
Mm-hmm.
She couldn't move around. Okay. And it was extremely scary to me. Like, and again, as the caregiver, okay, as the husband, you're thinking, God, you know what I mean? I have to motivate her and keep her, mentally okay because I know she's feeling down. And that is for sure.
Because in 2021, that was when it got really, 2021, it got really bad. And that's when I hit a real depression. Because if you want to talk about how we were really stuck with the doctors, like we didn't really know where to go.
So we did have a doctor, and I felt like he was good. Okay. But as we know in this illness, there's a lot of guessing involved. It is not something you get and it's fixed. It's something you get the medication and you give it 3 months to see if it works. And while in that 3 months, everyone's suffering, you know what I mean? Especially Marissa, but we have to keep her, hey, it's okay. We need 3 months to make sure this is either the right plan or the wrong plan. And that is very key. And I think we've learned that a few times where we almost want to give up after the month and a half.
Before that even.
Sure. She gets into like, I can't do this. This is not working. And I'm like, I'm with you. You know what I mean? And then we talk to the doctor and the doctor says, no, you have to stay on it. We need the 3 months of information. We stayed on the 3 months. And sometimes you see a little difference and you're like, he's right. The 3 months is enough time to kick in and let's see if it's starting to work. Okay. And that's I feel like that's one of the toughest things with this illness is the waiting game.
Waiting.
Is this medication working or not? And you have to wait 3 months. She could be suffering for 3 months.
Yeah.
And not only that, let's just say the 3 months didn't work. We're going to get onto a new medication and then wait another 3 months. That's 6 months. You know what I mean? And in that time, she's not feeling good, not doing good, not moving around. And you have no choice to flip flop or switch. You've got to continue on the path. And I think the biggest part for me or my job was to keep her motivated. Yeah. It's going to be okay. We're getting to that 3 months. Yeah. We're here with you.
It was every day.
Yeah.
Because not really what I was doing in this one. It felt like I didn't belong. Yeah, so every day, it was Jonah having to give me pep talks, like a coach almost, because I was really struggling with the depression there and really struggling with my existence in this world. Like, why am I here? I can't do anything, can't get off the couch, and I was really, really down every day. And I would wake up and cry every day. And then he would come and talk to me, give me my pep talk, and that would last me for, a few hours. Then I then I'd oftentimes just say, you know, can you come just sit down here with me on the couch for a little bit? Like just sit by me. Like you don't even really have to talk, you know, just sit. So I just didn't feel so alone. You know, luckily I had my mom coming a lot to sit with me when he was working. And when he would be working, he would call to check in, you know, throughout the day, kind of how he's doing. But it's like, I didn't even want to talk to him because like nothing is different, right? Nothing's changed. I still feel horrible.
Yeah. So what I'd say is it's a lot to do with the mental game. Okay. This is a mental thing that I'd say Marissa was very tough with it, which is great. She would break down. She would second guess herself. She would get into depression. I was worried she would have even deeper thoughts of other things that scared me. And I'd always check in with her. Hey, where you at? How are things going? You know, the mental game is very important because, you know, she's on a down and I have to make sure to try to keep her up and distracted as much as possible. So even when I was at work, obviously I was scared of calling home because, you know, there'd be 3 hours, 4 hours between calls. You know, I'd call 2, 3 times a day to check in. And every time I check in, I'll be honest, I was scared. I was like, yeah, I was scared to see what state you were at, how you were doing, how you were doing for the day. In the mornings when we wake up, it would be, hey, Marissa, how you doing? And she'd be like, I don't know yet. I guess when she woke up, she needed 30 minutes or an hour for anything to kick in.
Yeah. I started to move around, which I'm sure Joy understands.
So once she moved around, I would be like, okay, how you doing? I'm starting to feel things. I knew instantly the day was ahead of us because she already told me the light right there that the day wasn't going to be okay. So I knew mentally how I have to treat the day with her. Lots of check-ins, lots of, you know what, we're looking forward. We're getting closer to the 2 months or 3 months. How's the medication working? Where are we at? It was lots of different, you know, check-ins with her. You always have to check in with Marissa because I know she's feeling down and depressed, 100%. Because I'm always thinking, if this was me, this is this is really tough. This is impossible. I've never heard of such a thing. I can't believe she can't go on her phone. I can't believe she can't watch TV. We even had her doing audiobooks for a while, which I, you know, was a nice distraction. I thought or hoped, you know, at the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How did you oh, go ahead. Sorry, Marissa, go ahead.
Hey, Joy, can't you relate? It's kind of like feeling like a prisoner in your own body.
Yeah, I felt alone. There could be everyone around me and I felt alone. And I wanted to ask you something when you touched on the medicine, because people who have been through any vestibular disorder, you know, the medicine game. Try this medicine, see how it works. And there's also another part to that. A lot of times we as the patients have fear of medicine because the medicine say it'll make you dizzy. You want me to take a medicine that's going to make me dizzy? I know what I would do when my husband, I'd take one. I would just be like, I would take it and then I'd be like, just stay in here for 2 hours and monitor me. How did you help Marissa feel comfortable when she had to take a new medicine and maybe wasn't comfortable taking a new medicine?
You want to talk about the when I took the sumatriptan?
Any medicine? Okay. So I'm more like sometimes the tougher route. Okay. So I would be like, oh, you don't trust the doctor now. Okay. We've put it into his hands. And I think he went to school for all this. And are we not believing him? Because then we'll have to move to somebody else. I need you to trust him. I always say, I'm not the doctor. We have to entrust in this person that's giving us the medication, which is a bad way of looking at it. It's like a tougher way. But I always try to get out of the, you know what, I know you're worried about it, but I don't think he's looking to do harm to us. This is some of the path that we have to get tough and take risk, because there's points where I'm like, we've got to take a risk right now. Even if you don't want to do it, we are not seeing anything change for the good in this other medication that we're taking. We're against the wall. He's come up with another medicine that we should be taking, I recommend we do it. Again, Marissa wouldn't fall for my speech, okay? And she would be like, oh, yeah, you know, this and that. But that was one of the ways where I was like, we've got to take it. And I feel like we got to some of those points. Yeah, so, you know, I know you didn't have trust in what medicine to do until we got to Dr. Bay, is when, you know, I really felt like you had trust in somebody and you listened. So, and leading from Dr. Bay before that, you know, we went to Lutheran General, and, you know, we had a doctor there, and he was very good. That was our first doctor. Okay. We had him, and he would prescribe different things. Some would work, some would not, some would tail off, you know, stuff worked sometimes for a month or two, and then it kind of weaned off. And Marissa had to take more medication of something. And we had to try that and start there.
So this was leading up to my worst time ever. And that's when he had, the doctor had me on lots of steroids for a couple months. That was making everything so much worse. We were kind of in between trying a new doctor, a migraine specialist.
Yeah, so I could speak to that a little bit. So we were in the midst of, Marissa had a friend that recommended another doctor, because the doctor we have was okay, but we just couldn't get it solved.
Well, no, he told us there was nothing more he could do.
Okay. Okay. You do remember those words. Okay.
I do.
So there's nothing more we can do. And he kind of like said, if I was in Vegas and he said, if I'm in Vegas and I go to the casino, he's like, we're not going to hit on this. It's a guessing game. I roll the dice. That's what we're doing. And I'm like, whoa, you know, but he's giving me I understand. He's like, if I had the potion to give to you, I'm giving it to you. He goes, we don't have answers 100% on this. We have to test. We get it. So we did find another doctor. We started there. Marissa and I went to the office. We met him. Nice guy. Gave us a prescription. Was it a little different than our previous doctor, what he gave?
I don't want to go too much into descriptive on medications.
No.
But, we weren't getting anywhere with that doctor either.
So
basically
that one, I felt like that was a quick, we must have been to him maybe for 6 months, I'd say 6 months or more. Only a couple months, and it felt like 6 months. We visited him. Okay, the time flies, you know. But right away, Marissa got to her worst point. And Marissa would have interventions with the doctor. And the doctor, I remember, gave Marissa tough love. Said, well, if you're not listening, then you're not going to be with me. Something like this. Because Marissa would have pushback. She would.
I would ask questions.
Yes.
And I was hesitant and I was scared as to what was happening to my body, you know, so I'm going to ask questions and yeah. So we just.
He definitely put his foot down and was almost like, you're questioning me. Okay, I understand. The guy was, you know, you're a doctor. The patient's questioning, why did you come to me? That's the tough parts of all this, is we have to go through this because she's the one dealing with it. We're all on the surrounding. That's the thing. And the most important is Marissa's dealing with it, not me. So I get it. You know what I mean? So from there, you know, Marissa, you know, had a book of
from
Dr. Bay.
Yes, over vestibular migraine.
And we were at the worst point, and I could hone in on this. Marissa's on the couch every single day, has her head against the pillow every single day, cannot look at the TV, cannot look at the phone, like I said before, and none of the medications were working at that time.
Couldn't really even get up to wash my face or, you know.
We were at the end. We even submitted for Mayo at one point there, and couldn't get, like, we were desperate. And not only were we desperate, we were in the middle of 2 doctors and we couldn't go either way. That was the worst. It was almost like what happened is that Marissa was desperate. And I remember her saying, you know, I wish that we can deal with Dr. Bay. I have his book. He specializes in this. And I just wish. Then I was like, okay, let me look. And I think I looked through the book, or I looked online, and I found an email of theirs. So right away, I emailed them later that day And right away, next morning, they wrote me and they said, yes, we can help you. Here's the sign-up sheet. And we can make an appointment for you. And I was like, whoa. And I remember forwarding the email to Marissa. The hope of the new doctor pushed you through the whole month, which was great. And it shows how important it is to have that mental stability of, keeping that person happy, and there's something to look forward to, and there's hope, you know what I mean? And we're going to do this together. We're here for you. It was so important because I know how she was feeling, but the push of seeing that doctor, she could make it through. So, and that's a nice, it's a learning thing, right? It's like a learning for all of us, is like, you've got to keep, the happiness, the positivity, even though there's sometimes the positivity is tough, you got to keep it there, Yeah. And when we knew we had the appointment with Dr. Bay, it was extremely important because Marissa wasn't doing good at that time, but we had a month till the appointment began. But you can see the change in her, the inspiration, the positivity. There's some sort of light that we're going to see somebody else that's going to help us. And that was a teaching, I think, for all of us, is, again, the mental state is so important, to stay positive, to show hope, that there's something at the end of the tunnel here. We're not going backwards, we're going forward.
Yes.
And I love that because she pushed to the month, because she kept saying to herself, only 3 weeks away, only 2 weeks away.
We did have a countdown.
Oh, I was counting down too.
But it was a little more enthusiastic, but I was not remembering myself being positive in a month. I was kind of in moments to make it through this month. And if I needed something, we actually arranged it with my primary care doctor, told her the situation, that we had a few weeks, so we were seeing this new doctor. And if I needed anything, she could kind of help me out with that if I was stuck. So we kind of had that in the back, but I was kind of more trying to survive.
Well, maybe that was more of my speech that I was going at with Marissa and saying 3 weeks, 2 weeks.
Positive with me, but that helped to a point. But when you have this, it's really hard to find that positivity in those moments. And we did have the countdown, because I knew, and I would constantly look at the calendar, like, okay, did this. I got 1 more week now. 1 more week, because it was really, I would say, survival. That's what it felt like. It was really just trying to survive, because I wasn't.
Yeah. And that's how long I had to wait for Dr. Bay too, about a month. And I remember back then, a month felt like forever. It
Yes.
just,
No, I agree.
Yes.
I
every
agree.
day I'd look at the calendar and I just, so, I kind of, again, this story is such a deja vu to what I went through. That's why Marissa and I think have connected so much, because we went through the same thing. And so I know how I felt when I first saw Dr. Bay, I know how Marissa felt after she saw Dr. Bay, but Jonah, how did you feel after Marissa saw Dr. Bay?
Yeah, and first, let's just remember how when Jonah had reached out to him, he had just left his previous practice to open the base within a week. Yeah, I don't know if we mentioned that. So we were lucky to get it. So
yeah,
like, honestly, a month was like, oh, it's only a month. We thought 6 months, a year.
Yeah,
we were that scared. I was. It didn't seem like simple to get to see Dr. Bay. It didn't seem simple. And 1 month was like, okay, that is good news. So when I first met him, he was very happy guy, and very, very nice and very positive, and tell me the story, tell me what's going on. And Marissa would run through the years of stories, and we only had 30 minutes or an hour. Okay. But if the story takes a while, and we went through stage by stage by stage, and he analyzed and broke it down. And then I believe he gave us 3 recommendations, 3 different things that he offered to you. It said, this will do this, this will do this, or this will do this. What do you feel more comfortable with? And I think Marissa was like, not this one. But I also felt at that time, Marissa had strong belief in him. And when we went and he said, well, we partnershiped, you know, we agreed, he agreed what we're going to do together. Marissa was all in and she did it, which was great. You know?
Yes, but I was still afraid.
Sure, but you still went through with it. You still
Yeah.
went through with it.
I didn't have a choice. You know, I felt like if I wanted to try to get my life back, I needed to trust him. Right. You know, because I couldn't go on the way I was. That was a dead end, a dark, deep tunnel. So I didn't want to go.
And then right out the, you know, I think 3 months, was it 3 months? We started
Well,
check
it
in.
was yes, but first after a couple weeks, which I've said on
Oh, yeah.
previous episodes with Joy, you know, after 2 weeks, I was able to take that first walk outside, which I hadn't left the house in a little under a year, like where I was able to step outside the front door without feeling like I'm gonna fall over.
Yeah, and not only that, things are gradually improving, but there's also, you got to be ready for the step backs too, because Marissa would be doing great, and there could be a day or two mixed in there, or 3 days or 4 days, we count those days, of bad days.
Or longer, yeah.
And that's, again, getting on the horse and being positive. It's like, hey, it's not going to be perfect. No one says this is going to be perfect. You have to expect the bad days coming back. Now, the fear, and I'm sure for both of you, is this coming back for good? Is this how I'm going to be for good now? And I know that thought process. Trust me. I can't talk about it. I know you guys fear it. So I have to have her try to snap out of that a little bit and say, hey, there are bad days and there are, you know, things that you can take backtrack, but the positive days are going to come back. And we stayed on that horse. Hey, if it's 3 days or 4 days, we need to figure it out. Again, after 12 years of this, I think Marissa and I learned different things of what could happen. You know, what could change, what could fix things. It could be weather related. It could be time of the month. It could be different little things that click in. We all know that. So I think we've turned to be professionals on that, where, okay, hopefully you're not going to be down and out more than 3-4 days. Okay, we're going to be back. You know, but that's another mental challenge, is that on the bad days, what happens, we got to stay positive, that it's good. It's okay. That's normal. We got to expect it. You know what I mean? I think I always told Marissa, you've got to expect bad days, because you get on this horse, like, I'm going outside, I'm walking the dog, I'm driving the car, life is so good. And then you take one step back and it's like, oh, am I back to this? I know. So I'm always watching for that. And another thing that I'm watching for is Marissa's face emotions. You know, sometimes she'll hide things in the morning, and I'm just, you got to zone in. Hey, are you okay? Is everything? No, I'm having a bad morning. You know, you got to catch it, you know, because she'll hide it sometimes. Yeah, I know the face. I know the quietness, not as bubbly that morning, you know, so got to look for those things too.
Yeah, I can relate, you know, because my husband's kind of said all the same things you have said. You know, and when I talked to him about this, you know, that's how he feels too. You know, he didn't know kind of how to help, but he did what he could, being there for me, just keeping positive. Let's listen to the doctors. You know, I would have him sometimes read the medicine side effects. Just, you read them, don't tell me what they say. You just watch for them. And that's kind of how we would work it.
I like that one. That's good. Yeah. We didn't do that. That's good.
Yeah.
Marissa read them.
Yeah, I did not read them, because then I would have every single side effect. So, and the whole seeing Dr. Bay, the whole, that was a game changer. Which kind of brings me to, you know, how are things now? How has it changed since a year ago? What's going on now?
I mean, it feels like our lives are changed 360. I couldn't be happier, because we've gone together from the depths to now the happiness, the Marissa's living life. You know what I mean? Marissa's taking care of Ethan, even though she was doing that then, it was just really brutal and something she couldn't do. And, she's driving now, which is a big feat. She's, independent. She's leaving, she's coming back, she's going to her mom's house, she's taking care of her mom. She's doing all sorts of things and she's so happy. I see a different person. You know what I mean? I see the old Marissa when we met, years ago, because life is pumped back into her. She sees things are great. She feels great. She wakes up happy, and she takes the dog on long walks. She's making meals at the house. She's doing the vestibular group with you guys, which is absolutely amazing. It's like another job here. She's working so hard. She's like, Jonah, I got a meeting at 6 and I got a call at 3. And I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. When I call her, I'm not nervous. It's just happy time. She's like, can I call you back? I'm in a meeting. Whoa. So, I mean, it's absolutely amazing. And I was even talking to Ethan today, driving him to soccer. I'm like, aren't we so happy that mom's back? You know what I mean? It really means a lot to all of us because we're all in it together. When Marissa's down, we're down. When Marissa's up, we're up. You know what I mean? We're together as a family in spirit and in hope and in happiness. We didn't leave her. We try not to leave her on an island. You know what I mean? But sometimes, him and I would leave and she would be here alone, and now, I mean, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. I feel like we're getting there, but I always stay. Like I said earlier, I said, you can go back a few bad days. It's okay. You know what I mean? That's okay. But I think we understand where everything lays. The 12 years of suffering with this and understanding this, I feel like we're not experts at it, but I feel like a semi-expert. I can explain and understand some things. I really can. You know what I mean? Because we've been dug deep in it. And one other thing too is I feel like the dog that we have or the cat that we have really helped Marissa in the time of need because she wanted to take care of the dog. She knew the dog would be on an island without her, even though she was sick. And the dog wouldn't say anything, but it would just show love when I wasn't there or I was at work and we're not around. I also, the pet is so important during this. Honestly, a pet is key.
Support.
Emotional support animal is key. 100%. That does something. It's so beautiful that an animal can do such a thing. For healing and making people feel better when they're down. So that's what I would say.
Advice to give other caregivers out there. What are some tips we can give some other people? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned some of it. It's really staying positive, I think, is the biggest one. Is I was in charge of watching Marissa's state of mind, how she was doing, and for her not to get so down because she was, and to continue to support her, sit next to her, talk to her. Because if you're not going to talk, it's kind of like all your feelings get sucked inside and there's no one to bounce those feelings off of. Marissa needed somebody at all times to really talk to. I'm sure she talked to her mom and but really with me is the mental state of mind is so key. You got to keep pushing and being there as a support system for the person that is ill at that time, that it's going to be okay. I am hand in hand with you. I believe that we're going to get this done. And if we don't, we discuss together as partners of what road we need to take together. There's always hope. There's always the next step, because I'd always be like, what's the next step if this doesn't work? Where are we going? So she knew, okay, this is not a dead end. She was always afraid, and I'm sure everyone's afraid of, I feel like this is a dead end and this is it. I have nowhere else to go. No, there is never a dead end. We get to the next stage. And the next stage finally it took maybe 3-4 stages, is Dr. Bay. We finally got to that stage that locked in. It was a lot of battles in between. There was feeling good, feeling terrible for a long time, but you got to continue to plan or partner, with, someone that's dealing with that illness, staying positive and making sure they have the right state of mind and making sure they do, and always checking in, always checking in. They're not going to say anything sometimes. You've got to watch the face emotions. You've got to watch how they're talking, how they're acting. You guys probably hide a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you don't want to burden the family. I feel Marissa was like, oh, I'm burdening the family. You know what I mean? I know you feel that. And I'm watching for all that. So I hope that comes out clear. It's just making sure that you are supporting 100% and watching everything, because there's a lot of hidden stuff and stuff. I want to say one more thing that's coming to my mind real quick is when I spoke about the partnership, one thing that I wanted to make sure of is that at every visit that Marissa went on, I was with her. And every meeting that she sat down with the doctor, I was there getting the information the same as her. We were there together. I knew exactly what she was taking. I knew exactly what was the dose. I knew exactly what it would do. And I was there for each and every bout of this. And I think that's very important, because as a partnership, to be with the doctor together is awesome, because I need to know what's going on as well. And what was pretty cool is we finally got to Dr. Bay, and I must have had maybe 2 meetings, maybe 3 with her. And finally we said, I don't need to be there anymore. And I feel like that's when we turned the keys, and Marissa's like, you know what? I got this now.
Thank you, Jonah, for what you've done for me.
Anytime, I'll be here.
Thank you, Jonah.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for listening.